conspiracy theorist within me. My ears have pricked up and I'm highly, highly suspicious, but I cannot confirm jack. And it's a very frustrating state of affairs, considering that the only news coverage we have on it is from mainstream scum who just keep asking lame questions like, was it shocking when the earthquake hit? It's like, no kidding, it was shocking.
No, I totally agree. And here's the reason why, folks. Vinny's absolutely right. The purpose of this show is to get as many people together to get this information out. And then it's up to you. It's up to you guys, the people, to go out and find out what is actually going on. And I'll be quite honest with you guys. This has some very dire implications for Americans, because just around the corner we have NLE 2011. And if anybody's not familiar with National Level Exercise 2011, it centers around the New Madrid Fault. And if anybody doesn't know what the New Madrid Fault is, just Google search it, and it will make your hair stand up on end. Because if you have a major earthquake there, much like you did in the 19th century, it causes some serious problems for the American people. And I'm being very general, but that's really what it is. So then you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that the United States government, or FEMA, go and solicit over, 1.5 million MREs? Why is it that they're soliciting over 4 million gallons of diesel fuel? Why is it that there are coffins stationed all over the place? And we can go on and on and on, but the fact remains that all of this stuff happens. All of this stuff is there, and it's not there just for convenience. It's not like, ooh, the MRE industry is taking a hit. Let's prop it back up. That's not how it works, you know? That's not what they're trying to do here, folks.
Well, you know, you make a good point there, and you're asking questions. What I don't see the media doing is asking questions. I see them making statements, and I've just received an update from my producer here that the latest body count is in fact 113 and counting. But what they do is they just report the facts and they don't ask the questions anymore. Now, this is the diabolical situation that we have with modern journalism, is that essentially they spend more time doing their hair and makeup than they do think.
You're absolutely right. Now, Griff, I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on this whole event.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, Joe. First of all, are you saying Vinny or Benny?
Vinny. V as in
Vinny
Victor,
with a V.
Vinny. Yes, V as in
With
Victor.
a V.
Easy to remember. It starts with a V and it ends with an N-E. It's Vinny.
Okay.
And
Well,
it's Vinny
Vinny,
with
it's nice.
and that's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question.
It's nice to meet you. I have old bad ears, and I couldn't pick up that first part of the sound. I'm in Virginia, Vinny, a couple miles above Joe down in North Carolina. I have a lot of thoughts on it. In fact, I've been talking about this for the last 5 or 6, 7 years. And I think I've addressed all of this many, many, many times, so it's not new material to me. Obviously, the quake down there, all of the collateral information evidence points to a scalar hit. There's no doubt in my mind. It's happened many times in many different places. We had a scalar hit here in Richmond, Virginia. In fact, I pinned it down. The center was Ellen Road on the north side of the city. And other strange things happened in that area after the hit, and houses rattled and booms and so on. We had another one in Columbia, Virginia, where there was an earthquake, but the sound came out of the sky 60 miles away. Now, that was a scalar. Vinny, it would be interesting to know if the sound of the earthquake came down out of the sky, and were there booms or noise coming out of the heavens. That would be more evidence for scalar. It's not necessarily always accompanying the scalar hit, but quite often you will see those two tied together. There have been many. The tsunami over in Indonesia that killed all of the, I don't know how many people, there were 250,000 people. That was a scalar action, no doubt about it. The most probable country is Russia. They are the most advanced in the technology, But there are many countries now, up to 10 countries that have that technology, including China and Israel, many other countries, the United States. The United States was the new guy on the block because Washington wouldn't listen. They wouldn't act on it until fairly recently. I remember that Tesla said he could crack the Earth in two with this technology, could crack it in two. And now we're seeing it applied in the scalar, SCALAR. Tesla called it different things, including the death ray, the killer ray, but the scalar word is fairly new. And the expert in the United States is Colonel Tom Bearden, who has had his life threatened 3 times to be quiet. It is probable that at some point in time, that fault line around the Mississippi and all the way down will be hit, and it'll be a military hit because you'll dump the Great Lakes into the Gulf of Mexico and take out Louisiana, take out all the port cities, and you'll have 600 feet of water coming down into the Gulf of Mexico. 600 feet, all of the Great Lakes are 600 feet above the Gulf. That
Chris,
will happen.
I mean, that's kind of hard to wrap your arms around when you think about it.
Well, all of this is apparently because I've been talking about it for years and nobody's been listening.
No, I mean, I'm
Joke's
right,
on me.
I'm right there with you. Now, John King, you got something to add to the conversation?
Yeah. The next time, welcome to the show, Vinny. I'm John King. The next time they ask you if you were shocked, just tell them no. It happened right on time when they wanted it to happen.
Yeah, my favorite quote of myself is I'm always shocked, never surprised. You know, because everything just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse in every single sector of society, and it's like we're living in the age of disaster. You know, everything is a freaking disaster, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
whether it's
absolutely.
You know, and my way of dealing with this is to make jokes about it. You know, I mean, there's this large building, one of the tallest buildings in Christchurch now. Because of liquefaction, the ground has liquefied, and now it's leaning over, threatening to topple and crush a whole bunch of other people. Basically, it's going to take out an entire city block if it falls over. And so I say, you know, why don't you start a small office fire at the top, and I'm sure it'll collapse into its own footprint symmetrically within a few hours.
No, you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Griff. You have something to add?
I would like for you, I'm not at the computer right now, I'd like for you to pull up, again, the quote from the Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, in 1997, and take that paragraph in your mind and just transliterate the whole thing into one sentence, what he said about earthquakes, and read that again. Let Vinny hear that. And that was in 97.
I will do that. Now, let me bring this up because here's an interesting.
That's important, Joe.
No, I will.
That's important to the conversation because the Secretary of Defense said that technology is in the hands of the terrorists, and they can do it at will and make earthquakes and take out cities.
Let's see here. Hold on one second.
The government is the terrorists, aren't they? You know, I mean, how would they govern us without the methods of terror? And that's one of the wonderful definitions I found in a dictionary for terrorism, is that it's a method of governing people.
It's most certainly that. It really is.
And in this country, I mean, it's been coined a prime ministerial dictatorship by the rest of the world because the prime minister is king. You know, you're supposed to have separation of powers in order to prevent corruption. There is no separation of powers in this. They can call Parliament into. We've only got one House of Parliament. So if you introduce a piece of legislation and you want to ram it through under parliamentary urgency in a day, you can do it. And they have done it several times. And each and every time that they've done it, there's been massive protests and nothing's been done about it. You know,
you're right.
And it's almost just like we've got to sit around and be used to being slaves. Well, if that.
Here's the quote from William Cohen, taken Monday, April 28th, 1997. The question was asked, let me ask you specifically about last week's scare here in Washington and what we might have learned from how prepared we are to deal with that inaudible at Benali Brith. And the answer was, well, it points out the nature of the threat. It turned out to be a false threat under the circumstances. But as we learned in the intelligence community, we had something called, and we have James Woolsey here to perhaps even address this question about phantom moles. The mere fear that there is a mole within an agency can set off a chain reaction and a hunt for that particular mole, which can paralyze the agency for weeks and months and years, even in a search. The same thing is true about just the false scare of a threat of using some kind of chemical weapon or a biological one. There are some reports, for example, that some countries have been trying to construct something like an Ebola virus, and that would be a very dangerous phenomenon, to say the least. Alvin Tolfer has written about this in terms of some scientists in their laboratories trying to devise certain types of pathogens that would be ethnic specific so that they could just eliminate certain ethnic groups and races, and others are designing some sort of engineering, some sort of insects that can destroy specific crops. Others are engaging even in eco-type terrorism, whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. That was William Cohen, April 28, 1997.
And that's what happened in New Zealand.
Now, let me ask you this. Here's the curveball to that, Griff. Here's the curveball, and this is where it loses me with that particular issue. Why the whale kill the day before? Why did 147 whales beach themselves the day before? That's what gets me.
Why did Alaska Airlines have trouble flying the west coast of California running into scalar fields?
Mm-hmm.
And
allegedly
when the Thresher submarine was taken to...
What's that?
Allegedly there were U.S. vessels possibly using sonar, and that can sometimes cause whales to beach. But I'm not 100% sure. I haven't confirmed that.
Well, we've had fish kills all over this area up here. Thousands and thousands of fish and critters have died in the water and washed up on the beaches.
Yeah. Again, here's the thing. If that's the case, Griff, and don't get me wrong, I mean, it's still a viable option.
An option, that's what it is.
Well, you know what I mean. But you can't, see, here's the problem. How do you confirm something like that?
Well, Joe, when the Secretary of Defense says the terrorists have it, and we have ample evidence, and we're getting it right from the experts, that this is the most lethal weapon in existence on Earth ever, and it's been applied, and it took down the Challenger, it took down the Columbia, it's taken down the Thresher submarine with 127 men, it's taken down other stuff. The science community and the intel community know all about it. The people don't believe it. I have been talking this stuff for a long time. That's what happened in Christchurch, and it was a shot across the bow. That's what it was.
Well, think about
this. That was. I've got a question for you, Griff, if I may. Sorry, Joe.
Sure. No, go ahead, Vinny.
The strong possibility, and I don't know 100% for sure if it was HAARP, but that's where I'm leaning towards. The question is why? Because the New Zealand government on the day of that was just discussing trans-Pacific partnerships and wanting to be even further enslaved to the New World Order. So I was wondering what would be the motive for doing this.
Well, it wouldn't be HAARP. HAARP is old technology. HAARP is a single transmitter. You can't do it with those frequencies out of HAARP, and you can't do it. You just can't. It's old technology. People say it's HAARP because they don't know about the interferometer scalar transmitters. That's why they keep going back to HAARP.
But again, let's say it is the scalar transmitters. Again, what would be the motive here? Because if they're firing a shot across our bow, like for example, the missile that was fired off of the coast of California was a warning shot from allegedly from the Chinese to the Americans, saying back off because the Americans have been encroaching on their sea space and things of that nature. That makes sense. Whereas this one doesn't seem to make sense at all.
But I bet it makes sense.
There might be a possibility. there might be a possibility of a power grab here, and this is what this national state of emergency is going on here, because when you have declared states of emergency, the government can then basically then flex its muscle, and who says that they're going to give up all these emergency powers once it's done? You know, it's going to be like the evil emperor of